looks like we're in.
Liver, you know, it's more like, no one has the right way.
Mike's picking you up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
We're changing the tire.
Changing a tire.
Learning.
All right. Questions, comments, mimetics. We're doing more mimetics. This is where we ended, and I was basically talking about we're basically using a bit of what is called in Western civilization anthropology, where we're talking about culture. Now, culture is not just about race or ethnicity. It is also about patterns for living that are adaptive for survival. So when I talked about, for example, that what I called a viral mimetic paradigm for cultural transmission, you don't actually have to have contact, actual physical contact with the culture. You can just observe it on television. So, for example, when people when the old television show Marcus Welby was on television, people would write into NBC asking Dr. Marcus Welby for medical advice, as if it was real, even though they knew it was on TV, but they thought he was a real doctor, right? Through the power of television. That's a meme. So one of the things that we find often, especially when I first started using this in the late 80s, early 90s to explain gang behavior, a lot of times the white kids who were gang identified didn't actually have minorities that they knew. They just watched MTV or Yo MTV Raps, right? And for a while, you know, MTV, when it first came out, didn't actually even allow black music on it until Michael Jackson. And then they started, oh, well, you know, all these white kids are into rap. Let's do that. And so then you start having, you know, I used to actually do a gang talk, and I'm going to get off it, but I'm just showing you by illustration. So Time magazine comes out with, you know, gangs, right? But the image that they have of a young gangster is a white kid with a sawed off, with a white t-shirt and a baseball cap. And this kid's from Omaha, Nebraska. And he's drinking 40s and listening to rap music. And what was really interesting about this Time magazine article is talking about gangs, right? Except that whenever it's talking about the white kids, the word gang is only mentioned 3 times in the entire article. On the cover, they're talking about this is a young gunslinger. A gunslinger, like, you know, the Old West, like, you know, Wild Wild West, right? So, and the word gang is used 3 times in the entire article, and it's usually to caption a night shot. There was one night shot where police were talking to 3 gang members. So the kid in the foreground of the shot was a black kid, mixed race black kid, and there was an Indian next to him, feather Indian, not dot Indian, and a Latino. And so that's the only place that gang was mentioned, was with the minority kids. Everywhere else, where they're describing these white kids in Omaha, Nebraska, who are listening to rap music, drinking 40s, and doing drive-bys. But they're calling it gunslingers, not gangs. So right there the meme is, oh, gangs are minorities, the white kids are gunslingers. The minorities are criminal. Oh, these are redeemable. They're gunslingers. It's just a phase they're going through. They'll get over it, right? So culture is a virus. And maladaptive culture is also a virus. So when you have an addicted, a culture that essentially promotes addictions as a major parts of its economy, then what will happen is maladaptive culture will adapt its host or cause its host to adapt to survival conditions or to survive in less optimal conditions. So part of what I mean by that is that addiction is from the point of view of the scientists, a bad adaptation, a maladaptive behavior to certain conditions within your life. And it basically replicates worse conditions, but you don't necessarily think to question it. It becomes normal. And you don't, well, this is just who we are. We're just people who drink a lot of beer. Joe Sixpack is not drinking a six-pack, he's drinking a case. Or if he's not drinking a case, he's drinking a fifth of vodka or whatever. And that becomes normal behavior over a period of years. We're still functioning. I still have a job. Okay, right. But what about that is working for you? All right, so maladaptive culture can adapt to its hosts. And sometimes an old survivor pattern is retained long after the harsh conditions are ended. So one, we do definitely see that with gang behavior, especially where the kids did not come from poverty and never had to worry about survival, but they're adapting the gang-related behavior that came out of harsh survival conditions because they want to do something else. It's like a protest culture. But sometimes people will maintain certain addictive behaviors long after the original impetus for the addictive behavior. The addictive behavior is an adaptation to. After those conditions have ended, they'll continue using it and using those addictive survival patterns long after. So it often fails to adapt to the conditions that are about to transpire because sometimes you can't necessarily conceive of something different happening, and you continue using the same old pattern to respond to new conditions without actually changing into a healthier mode, because you can't conceive of anything different. And this is often the work that we're trying to do within a treatment context, ideally, if we can conceive of what the problem is. All right, but to more directly, so thoughts and emotions are essentially chemicals and energy. Sometimes you can counter toxic thoughts with less toxic thoughts or thoughts that dissect or neutralize other thoughts. What I mean by that is, that's what I'm talking about with mimetic engineering. What are the core beliefs within a meme that drive it, that are central to its worldview, that if you disprove those central beliefs and stop believing in them, the meme falls apart or has less effect on you? Like taking it apart. What is the central mythology? Like, name a toxic meme that you're aware of. I know you must have thought about this. Anyone?
You mean like a toxic, you mean like a belief in society is like...
Sure.
Like that?
Yes, sure. Sure.
I don't know, I'm drawing a blank now.
Well,
Help me out here, peeps.
I'm not sure if this fits. My daughter and I were talking about it, but what about that 47% term that came out during the election, and it was all over the internet and all over, was referred to, and it was a shortcut you knew immediately. Is that was a meme, right?
Yes, it's a meme. I mean, that's why I was using it, because It's something that got popular. A lot of people talked about it, and so it's a meme. It has a central idea, right? 47%. So the idea is that there are people that are not working that are collecting money, right, for not working. Well, okay, that's true if they're retired. They're not working. I've already done my 40 years. I paid money into a pension and Social Security on the promise that you'd be paying me after I stopped working. Who said that I had to continue working after retirement age after I've already put in 40, I'm not mooching off the government. I paid into that. That's like an investment. So yeah, I'm not working. But, the idea of the 47%, oh, they're mooching off, the welfare state. Or, today Romney said, oh, well, blacks and Hispanics voted for Obama because he's giving them gifts. Like, really? What gift? I'm paying more in taxes since Obama been. What gift? Where's my reparations check? What are you talking about? I've only been unemployed I've been working since I was 15. I've been unemployed in that entire, I'm 57 now. So you do the math, right? I've been unemployed for a total of 18 months, 2 9-month stretches where I collected unemployment for a total of 3, no more than 9 months. I paid into that. I'm a taxpayer, yo. I ain't mooching off of nothing. So, and most of the people I know that they're talking about, they're describing, okay, also people who are in the military, who are like risking their lives. No, they shouldn't be paying taxes. So, and you want a bigger military budget, right? So, you start taking apart that meme, right? So I want to, we're talking about an addictions class. So many of you and your friends are often in this position. I was at Michelle Alexander's lecture the other day at the U of O, and she wrote a book called The New Jim Crow. So you're not ethnic studies students, so if you're not familiar with Jim Crow, it was legalized discrimination against black people right after the Civil War and continuing to the Civil Rights Movement. So she was saying essentially, all right, if black people are actually 3% of the illegal drug users in the country, and maybe 1% of the drug dealers in the country, I mean, it's just as illegal to buy drugs as it is to sell them. And even Ronald Reagan said 80% of the illegal drug users are white men who make in excess of $50,000. They ain't going to jail. So, I see you have a criminal justice, textbook, right? So once you get the label felon, you lose your right to vote. You lose your right to food stamps. You lose your right to public housing. You can't get a job even if you haven't been convicted. You can lose your property and be labeled a felon without a conviction for drug laws. The government can take your property. There is a financial incentive for them to rack up numbers of arrests without getting a conviction. Since 1980, more people have been put in prison for nonviolent drug-related offenses like marijuana possession than were in jail in 1980. So clearly, all right, some people who are felons, for example, California just redid their 3 strikes laws because, if one of your strikes was a non-violent drug offense, you got locked up for life. There are people doing life in prison in some states for possession of less than an ounce of marijuana. Life for weed? Yeah, like Texas. Okay, so And so some of these folks, basically have gotten their label merely by being arrested by the police, and it actually was proven in Oakland, the police planted the weed to get the arrest so that they could get more money from the feds. And that they could seize cars, seize property, sell that stuff at auction without getting a conviction. Right? So it fuels, again, you get the label felon. Okay? Who looks at you the same that way? So basically she's saying, okay, since most of these folks are disproportionately black, it's basically like legalized discrimination. You don't have to be black because there are lots of white people that are in that same position. So addiction is a medical problem. Medical problems are best not served in criminal justice. Sorry, straight up fact. All right? So part of the meme, right? So I'm dissecting or neutralizing, okay, this is going on. Why is this going on, and what is driving that? So when I talk with criminals who basically, or people who have been identified as felons, they aren't being rehabilitated to return to society any more than veterans at war are being rehabilitated to come back to a lifestyle that doesn't involve killing people. Right? They've had certain memes indoctrinated put into their heads so that they act out certain scripts, certain patterns. So sometimes you can counter those toxic thoughts with less toxic thoughts, or thoughts that dissect or neutralize other thoughts. So as a result of what happened to you, so remember, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. As a result of what happened to you, your brain imprinted strategies to deal with what happened to you using chemicals and energy in a response. So, for example, with lizard brain. Lizard brain simply finds the fastest answer without thinking, no matter how healthy it is. That's one of the bases for addiction. So that's a meme, the four brains. Lizard, mammal, human, and angel. Remember? So lizard brain, can I eat it? Will it eat me? Repeat pleasure.